Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to everyone here in person and those joining us live stream. As president of the Book Club of Washington, this is one of my favorite times of the year as we gather to honor a Washingtonian who has made a substantial contribution to the culture of the book. The Emory Award was established by BCW members George and Deborah Emory, who are avid book collectors and longtime book club members. During their association with the club, they were instrumental in developing the journal, contributing articles, and serving as editors. Meade Emory was on the board of the Seattle Public Library for many years and on the Friends of the University of Washington Libraries. That legacy is reflected by today's awardees, Deb Fortner, Tanya Patton, and Elise Severe, whose work in saving the public library in Dayton, Washington, we are proud to honor. I would like to acknowledge the work of the Emory Committee, comprised of Chair Tamara Belts. Tamara, right here, and not very far away. Yes, yeah, my right-hand person these days. Jane Carlin, standing in the back. Carla Rickerson, Carla. Elizabeth Canning, who is over here now, and Jody Fenton, who I don't see with us today, but she was president of the book club right before she asked me to step in, as she had to deal with some leaking in the rare books area at the Seattle Public Library. That was a number of years ago. I'm still here. Yeah, I would like to acknowledge that both Jody and Jane are prior Emory Award winners, as well as our dear Claudia Skelton, now board member emeritus of the Book Club of Washington. I'd like to thank Tim Schmidt, our webmaster and tech person, for setting up this hybrid meeting, and recognize other members of the board who are present. Let's see, there's Ryan Eyre and Mark Chavez, Cindy Richardson, Carla Rickerson, who I mentioned, Nils Dickman. Let's see, who am I don't, and of course Tim's on the board and I'm on the board, and Elizabeth. So we have a lot of board members here today.
And David's here too. Hello.
And David, yeah,
yep.
Thank you. He's waving.
Yep.
There we go. And we have 14 members on the board, and it's a very active board. We have a number of committees. We've also opened the committees up to any board members, any members of the book club who would like to join in our event planning and our affairs. So just see me or any board member if you'd like to do that. So I'd like to take this opportunity to mention our upcoming events. We will have a table at the Bainbridge Book Festival on Saturday, October 5. This provides a good excuse for taking a ferry boat ride to Bainbridge Island. Jane is a resident of Bainbridge Island and has suggested that we participate in this. Is this their inaugural event?
The very first one, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so we want to encourage things like this. We'll have a table there and show off some of our wares. Our second bookstore social will be at Nils Dickman's bookstore, his new bookstore in Ballard Books, and it's in Ballard. Yeah, right. So just you all figure that out. You're quick. I knew that, right? So it's on Monday, October 7. Be from 5 to 7. We hope to do this regularly at dealer bookstores in Seattle. We had our first one earlier this month at Jeff Long's new bookstore. We had about 20 people there. It was a lot of fun. These are just informal. There's no program. We didn't have RSVPs. We'll have to see at some point whether we'll have to do that. But right now, just to come if you can. And it's just a chance to meet other members and potential members, as we're going to also invite clients of the various the dealers to come to these events as well. So this is an initiative Matt Bray, who is in, I think, Germany at this point, and Elizabeth have suggested, and I think we're hopefully to do this on a regular basis, maybe the first Monday of the month, so that people can kind of start to plan on it. Although we may move that date may have to move around. We'll see. We'll have our usual book at the Antiquarian Book Fair, and we'll co-host a reception for dealers the day before. The book fair is the last weekend in October 26 to 27. And the reception for the dealer will be as usual at McHugh's the day before. Members are welcome to come. It's not just for dealers, but unfortunately, you'd like to come to the book fair and buy some books on Friday afternoon. But unless you're a dealer, you can't do that. So the book fair is not open, it's their setup day. Our second annual all-day event with the title that tells it all, Words on Fire, Historical and Contemporary Perspectives on Book Censorship. Jane Carlin has put together a terrific lineup of speakers. It will be on Saturday, November 2nd at Folio, where we had our all-day event last year. It's in the Pike Place Market. So I have flyers here, and encourage you to take one if you're interested. Spread it around. It's also registrations are now open. And to round off our active year, we'll have our holiday dinner and auction on December 8th at Ivar's Salmon House. This is the Ivar's on the North Shore of Lake Union. This is the first one we've had since COVID. So, we tried to do something last year. It didn't seem to, couldn't really make it pencil. Hi, Nan. But Ivar's is very reasonable, and it's a very nice space. So I think we're encouraging everyone to come. We're very busy collecting items for the auction. We have a number of really wonderful things, including a painting by James Martin, a week, 3 days at a very fine house on Orcas Island. And I was just Tim and I were picking up an unbelievable trove of really artistic items from Carolyn Staley earlier today. We have more than we can offer at this auction, but there's some very, very nice items there. So now for the main event, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Elizabeth Canning. As I mentioned, she was a member of the Emory Award Committee. She was the one that nominated Deb, Tanya, and Elise for this award. Needless to say, it was enthusiastically welcomed by the rest of the committee and by the board. Really, I think it kind of represents the thinking out of the box that we're getting now with some of our new members, and we're just so delighted to be able to make the award today. Before I do that, however, before I turn it over to Elizabeth to introduce our people, I would like to invite everybody to celebrate this award with cake and champagne and other beverages at the conclusion of our program. Now, please join me in welcoming Elizabeth, who has made a great impact in a short time since she's been a member of the board.
Thank you, Gary. So imagine a community without a public library, without a space for learning, connection, and inspiration. This was the reality Dayton, Washington faced before the determination and hard work of its residents changed the course of their library's future. Today, we come together to celebrate the women who played a pivotal role in preserving and protecting the Dayton Memorial Library. Dayton, Washington located in the heart of southeastern Washington's farm country, has a rich history of community support for its local library. The effort to establish a public library began in 1919, led by the determined women of the Elizabeth Forrest Day Club. They opened a reading room on Main Street and raised funds through bake sales and collecting scrap metal. Eventually, the club purchased a vacant lot and acquired books from local prominent citizens. Their hard work, combined with the support of the Works Progress Administration, culminated in the opening of the Dayton Memorial Library in the fall of 1937. The club members also played a key role in furnishing the library and volunteering as its first librarians, laying the groundwork for a public institution that has remained the cornerstone of Dayton for almost a century. In 2023, the Dayton Memorial Library faced a serious threat of dissolution due to book challenges, and three remarkable women, Tanya Patton, Elise Severe, and Deb Fortner, stepped up to lead the fight to save it. Tanya Patton, a fourth-generation Columbia County resident, has been a steadfast advocate and community leader, playing a crucial role in preserving the Dayton Library and strengthening her community. In 2005, she led the successful campaign to create the Rural Library District, restructuring the library's funding model to ensure its survival when the Dayton Library was threatened with closure due to city budget cuts. Over the next 14 years, including 13 as chair of the Columbia County Rural Library District Board, Tanya remained deeply involved in guiding the library's growth and stability. In 2023, the library faced another existential threat, this time from book challenges and attempts at censorship. Once again, Tanya stepped forward, rallying community support and co-authoring the voters' pamphlet statement against the dissolution measure. Alongside Deb and Elise, Tanya's work helped safeguard the library for future generations. Tanya holds a degree in psychology from Willamette University and a master's degree in special education from Western Oregon University. She's been married to her husband, Gene, for 32 years, and together they homeschooled their 4 children. Passionate about teaching, reading, and baking, Tanya also enjoys hosting exchange students and is particularly fond of the quote by Jorge Luis Borges, "I have always imagined that paradise will be a kind of library." We are privileged to honor her today for her enduring leadership and dedication to the library's continued success. Elise Severe, born and raised on her family's wheat farm in Dayton, Washington, is also deeply committed to securing the future of her community. She attended Washington State University, where she majored in anthropology, and in 2022, Elise helped found Neighbors United for Progress, an organization that has worked to bring residents together in support of causes that reflect the needs and values of Dayton, most notably the effort to save the Dayton Library. Elise was also a co-plaintiff in the lawsuit that successfully blocked the dissolution measure, safeguarding the library for generations to come. Elise and her husband Ryan live on a small hobby farm with their 3 daughters, who enjoy attending the library's events and many activities. Her organization continues to support local issues and candidates who prioritize open access to community resources like the public library. We are proud to honor Elise today for her steadfast commitment to defending the Dayton Library. Born and raised on a farm just outside Waitsburg, Washington, Deb Fortner has deep roots in Columbia County's agricultural community. As a seasoned farmer, Deb has long understood the critical role libraries play in rural communities. A proud graduate of Washington State University, Deb not only carries forward a strong connection to her hometown, but also worked closely with Tanya to rally community support for the Dayton Library when it was most needed. In addition to her organizing efforts, Deb co-authored the voters pamphlet statement that urged residents to vote against dissolving the library in 2023, highlighting how essential its resources are for Columbia County. When she's not working the land or saving libraries, Deb enjoys her love of theater, travel, and animals, including riding and showing her horses and trialing her Jack Russell Terriers. We are thrilled to honor her today for her unwavering support of the Dayton Library and its vital role in the community. So please help me welcome this year's Emory Award honorees, Tanya Patton, Elise Severe, and Deb Fortner.
Okay, I got goosebumps.
Yeah, what an introduction.
I feel that with that introduction, we can just say any questions.
Yeah. We're done.
What a nice
Very well.
introduction.
Very well
Thank
done.
you.
Thank you so much.
We are so honored. I'm almost lightheaded. I'm just like so excited to be here. So honored. I didn't even know what the Book Club of Washington was when I originally got the phone call. Are they trying to sell me something? Do I need to speak up?
Could you tell us which one of you is
Oh,
which?
good idea.
Yeah.
I'm Tanya.
I'm Deb.
I'm Elise.
Okay. And funny enough, Lisa and I are cousins.
Yes, we are.
You know, small
town.
It's small town. So we just want to say thank you so much. We've done some research about the Book Club of Washington. Wow, I think we need to have like a satellite organization maybe in Columbia County. So thank you so much for this honor and for bringing it. We've had a fabulous weekend here. We went to the public library. Thank you for the reminder. We went to the public library. We've been all around. So we're really excited to share our story with you all.
So thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
Thank you for your warm welcome. Just thank you very, very much. What an honor.
And we're going to kind of, Tim's going to have his work cut out for him. We're going to kind of ebb and flow as we go through this presentation. We're going to just kind of jump in and share because we all have very different perspectives, different roles that we played and how we all work together with this, along with a lot of other people in our community as well. So, okay.
And there were more people than just us.
Mhm.
There are so many people in the community that everybody just came together. So
Right.
it's not just us. Although these two are huge, and yes, I'm just the pit crew.
Pit crews are important.
Yes, yeah.
So we're in charge of our slides?
Yep,
Okay.
here we go.
Oh, good. All right. So we wanted to, so are you gonna like push the button?
Yes, I will.
Okay,
Yep.
good. Okay. She's our tech person too. So we wanted to start off a little bit to tell you a little bit more about our community in Dayton, Washington. Kind of best foot forward, because what we found in this process was that the conflict, we couldn't figure out a good word for it, was very, it kind of put a black eye on our community, right? So people thought, oh, Dayton, we're full of people that hate books. And so we really wanted to it's not true. First of all, we just wanted to share a little bit about Dayton, give you some perspective. Our website is like historicdayton.com. So we are a very historic town, one of the oldest towns in Washington, especially in Eastern Washington. The slide, we have the oldest courthouse in Washington State that is currently being used as a courthouse. It went through an extensive renovation in the 80s. We also have a beautiful historic theater that was completely renovated about 20 years ago. Deb is going to be performing as Golda in a production of Fiddler on the Roof this fall, right? So come on over to Dayton.
Come over to Dayton and come to the theater.
L'chaim, right? So we have, lovely theater, for live theater, for movies, of course, the Manhattan Short Film Festival.
And this is really
wonderful.
what's coming, is the Manhattan Short Film Festival.
Oh,
Be here in a few
I didn't
weeks.
see that.
Yeah.
So for a small
Okay.
town, we really do try to encourage culture and things. We also have the oldest train depot in Washington State that is still standing. It is now a museum. We have a bronze sculpture of the train master outside, but it is a lovely place. I hope you all come visit and explore Dayton for yourselves. Now, Deb is an aspiring
Drone.
drone pilot.
Rookie,
Okay.
novice.
Okay, so she did some great drone footage here of our little town. Columbia County is an hour from Washington, or an hour from Idaho, an hour from Oregon. We're nestled kind of at the base of the Blue Mountains in the Tushie drainage here. The population of the Columbia County is about 4,000 people. In the city of Dayton is about 2,500 people. Surrounded, as you can see, by wheat fields. We grow a variety of crops.
Grow wheat, barley,
Peas.
red wheat, white wheat, peas, garbanzo beans, canola. We're mostly dry land, farmland. We do have some irrigated farmland along the river bottoms. That's mostly hay, alfalfa hay, grass hay.
So agriculture figures very heavily. We also are the home of the Jolly Green Giant. And I don't know if you knew that. So the Jolly Green Giant, at one time, Dayton processed and canned over 3/4 of the canned asparagus in the United States. So that's kind of our Jolly Green Giant on the hillside, now owned by Seneca. Like I said, a historic town. We have, count them, 1 stoplight.
One.
In the entire county.
One.
So, in the entire county. We love that we're known as like the 1 stoplight, 1 light town.
Our traffic jams consist of combines and tractors that are traveling down the road. And it's not a traffic jam, it's just you have to slow down to 15 miles an hour and be patient.
It is a community where everybody knows your name. Truly. When you walk into the local pharmacy, you don't have to say, "Who are you? Can I see your ID?" You turn around and go, "Oh, yeah, okay." And they get your prescription. Right. So that is a wonderful thing about a small town. Many of you are maybe from small towns. It's also a challenge when you get into a situation like we were in with the library, where there is conflict because you're living in close quarters. There is no anonymity in Dayton. You are known by everyone. So then you did a great job from the website of like giving the highlights of our how the library was formed. Very proud of our library. I'm just gonna skip forward a little bit because it was women. It really was women that laid the foundation, fundraise. They also have minstrel shows, which I think is really interesting as far as their fundraising. And the Dayton Memorial Library was funded exclusively by city tax dollars from 1937 until 2005. Rural county residents enjoyed completely free library service. They didn't have to buy a card. They really didn't have to do it. They just walk in the doors. And so when there were budget cuts, we lost 20% of our budget. The book budget at that time was $5,000. Basically, the book budget went away. And the Friends of the Library, I don't know how many of you are Friends of the Library, joined Friends of the Library. They really stepped forward and said, we're going to fundraise. And they raised over $30,000 out of our community within the course of just a very few months, maybe 6 months, to keep the doors open, to buy all of the books. They owned the copy machine and everything. So Friends of the Library are really the unsung heroes of a lot of this process as well. And they were incredible supports during our
all of this
brouhaha, whatever we're going to cost. Yeah. So then in 2005, when I led the campaign to form the library district, it was like, well, let's bring more tax dollars to bear on improving the library, not only saving the library, keeping it open, which was the first priority, but also to improve the library. And the whole campaign was based on let's fund the library, let's create a 21st century library, because it was a lovely place. The librarian was a grandma, right? And you just loved going to the library, but it was so small. It was 20 hours a week. It was just, I'd like to say the library was a place where people would go if you were the kind of person that would go to a rat-infested, black mold basement library. Do you know what I'm saying? It was a lovely building, but it's like people went there only if you were a passionate library person, which I was, and I think we all were. And it was beloved in the community. So in the campaign, and the rural county folk, people living outside of the city limits, which we You live in the city. Do you?
No,
live in-
I'm
no, you're
right
county.
outside.
We asked them, would you agree to tax yourself? Add a tax to your property taxes. And this was in, 2005, where taxes was a big deal, right? We had just slashed the tabs, right? The I-695, to $30. That's what really precipitated a lot of these budget cuts. And we're asking people, will you agree to a new tax? And almost 60% of the rural county residents, voters, said, yes, we will. We want an improved library. We want more hours, more books, more technology. We want a 21st century library that we can be proud of, right? So it was the Washington State Library, which were amazing resources at the time. They said, wow, they couldn't believe that a community at that time would say, yes, we'll pay.
Impose our own taxes.
Yes. And we made good on our promises. So when we did everything that we said that we were going to do, and then I'm going to say one more thing and I'm going to stop talking for a while. So that was in 2005. The idea was always to annex the city to the rural county library district. I call it getting married, right? It didn't make sense to have city library funding, rural county library funding. Then you gotta get along and you gotta figure out all this stuff. And there's always the territorial wars. Who's gonna be responsible for fixing the plumbing and roof needs? Who's gonna be responsible for that? So we campaigned then in 2009 after building kind of a track record, getting established, and the 73% of the voters voted to annex, to get married to the rural county library district. That's really important to our story later on, is this marriage, this annexation. It figures very heavily into some of the things that we went through. So we're one big happy family, and we went from there.
Until.
Please.
So we're all gonna take a deep breath and get ourselves very centered, because this becomes very emotional for us. This was the very first social media post. This is a picture of What's the Tea in June of 2022. And the post says, "Who thinks this is appropriate for our children's library?" Lots of posts going around, so I thought I would share one of the many books shared at the library board meeting that happens to be downstairs in the library for our kids. To the yellow spine of those books, those are algebra books. These were in the young adult section always. They were never in the children's section. But this is the post that started everything.
This was the shot.
This
heard
was the
around.
shot heard around the county.
This also is the first example of how terrifying social media can be.
Yes.
Terrifying.
And I want to mention too, that I didn't, part of the improving the library was the basement had been book storage, musty old book storage. And about 10 years into the library district, we completely renovated the basement and it became the children's library. So on one end is the young adults and the other end is the children's, but they have their own place. Prior to that, the children's section was a quarter of this room. So, do you want me to move on?
Tanya, would you explain the process of the
Yes.
challenge?
So then in September, after that post, in the September, social media goes wild, right? And there are 11 books that are formally challenged through our policy, right? Through our policy, there's a mechanism, every library has it, for reconsideration of certain books. 11 books were challenged, 3 main topics: racism, sexuality, and LGBTQ plus themes. The library director followed policy. Those came to the library director. His job, Todd Van de Bark at the time, his job was to look at those challenges, hold them up against our policy. Was the policy followed? It's really important. Was our collection development policy followed? And he found, and his decision was that yes, it had been followed. They were appropriate to the collection. They were appropriately shelved, placed, and he declined to remove those books from our collection. Because at that point it was, these books do not belong in the library at all. So he declined that. Then the people then carried forward A's appeal to the Board of Trustees. I was no longer on the board. I got off the board in 2021. What's T was carried forward. The rest of them, we said, well, we're not going to really worry about those. But we are going to carry an appeal to the board forward on what's T. And the board found in favor of the director at the time, said, yes, we follow the policy, this book is appropriate. And I should mention at the time too, the state library was being very supportive and bringing people to the board meetings to try to educate the board about First Amendment rights and the importance of not opening up the library to potential lawsuits by violating our citizens' First Amendment rights. And then out of that, so we go from October to February.
Yeah, so in between October and February, our library board meetings became an absolute circus. People came to voice their opinions, good and bad. The room that used to be empty and meetings that used to be boring were now that month's entertainment. People would bring printed material for shock value. Others would stand and voice their opinion about why it is so important that we be able to choose what we read and what we don't read, and nobody else can, be the moral majority. So in February, because this group of people felt that they were not being heard, but they meant we did not get our way, they created a petition to dissolve our only library district.
So the title here is Petition to Dissolve the Columbia County Rural Library District, and that's an important point.
Yes.
So they went around all through the county, through the town, and collected signatures.
Yeah, and because between October and June, our director he received the brunt of everybody's disgust and hate about specific books. He put up a really good fight for quite a while. He believes in First Amendment rights. He was a great director. If Todd ever watches this, thank you, Todd. But he decided for himself that he needed to resign and move on. And I don't blame him.
The battle was huge.
It was too
It
much.
should be noted that during those meetings, he was called a pedophile, a
A
groomer.
groomer.
The board was characterized as being groomers as well, because they supported Todd. And it's an open public meeting that he was, and on social media.
And on social media.
So
Yeah.
It was horrible.
I still don't follow a lot of the social media stuff, because it was horrific.
I believe he did file a police report because there was a veiled threat.
Yeah.
So this image, you can see the bye from our NSYNC boy band. This was posted when they all found out that Todd had resigned. And so they were celebrating the fact that they had run out of town our director.
That was one of the goals.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath.
Okay.
It's all good. We have a happy ending. It's all good.
I know we have to, we're here. So the first petition was turned in. I believe, where was the total that was turned in? 282 signatures were collected for the first petition. Quite a few were invalid. Thank goodness. 101 were verified. The rest had to be tossed.
Because, remember when we talked about the city and the county being annexed, a lot of those signatures came from city residents. And the people that were putting this petition forward really hadn't done their homework very thoroughly. Hadn't read the RCW carefully. And the Washington state law says that only the people that formed the library district could vote to dissolve it. So that's really important, kind of hold that in your mind. So they said, well, everybody who signed this was a city resident. You don't
You're not
get a
valid.
say. You don't get a say. You don't get to sign the petition and you don't get a say.
So there were 101. Let's see, the petition had 101. There were 101 verified signatures.
They
They
needed
needed
107.
Oh, gosh.
So we all went,
Thank goodness, right? We thought this was gonna end it.
we thought we dodged the bullet. Oh, there's what we were
There's our
talking about.
explanation.
Mhm. So 10%, that figures into our story too.
Mhm.
10%, that's a pretty low.
It's a low
bar.
threshold, it's a very low
Very
threshold.
low bar, especially in a small community. Now, 10% in Seattle might be a whole different thing, certainly, but in a small community.
So in the midst of all of this chaos, conflict,
Brouhaha.
the brouhaha, I have a mutual friend who lives in Sequim, and he introduced me to Sasha Abramsky, who writes for The Nation magazine. Maybe some of you know the magazine. And so I was able to host Sasha in Dayton for a few days and introduce him to some of the key players that were involved in this spectacular tale. And then he published, he did warn me. He said that once this is published, this is going to explode. And I thought, okay, we're a small
This
town.
is Dayton.
We will take care of it. Thank you for
No.
coming.
It's okay.
Because after the Nation hit, then it was David Gutman from the Seattle
Seattle
Times
Times.
on the phone, right?
Mhm.
And he and his photographer came over and spent a couple of days in Dayton. And how many of you read the article
did
when
you?
it came out?
Wow.
I never got to see it. Oh, thank you. I know my daughter was just complaining that she's never in the local paper. And I said, sweetheart, you were on the front page of the Seattle Times. But she doesn't get it yet.
Kind of trumps our local paper.
I know.
And we appreciate David's really great reporting. He got it right.
Yes.
Right. He was very careful because I was nervous. I was
Yes.
very nervous talking to Sasha. I was very nervous. This is a big deal. You're
Mhm.
saying things on record, and can I trust the reporters
Right.
to report accurately? Because the stakes were getting high, and we didn't realize until like Seattle Times, and then we realized, oh my gosh, this is so much bigger than Dayton.
Mm.
So much bigger than Dayton, which then felt like that's a weight, right? Because as you know, the ramifications or the precedent setting that could go nationwide was kind of blew our minds. Yeah.
So after the first petition was verified and they came up short, within 48 hours, Jessica Ruffcorn submitted the second petition where the auditor took his time to verify the signatures and they were successful. They had 163 verified signatures. And so that meant that now it was by law going to go to ballot.
I'd like to read
Yes,
this
please.
post.
Yes.
It says, this is from Jessica. It says, today, not only did I witness the greatness of God, but he let me be part of his miracle. And the quote here, she's on the steps of our courthouse.
Yeah.
But Jesus beheld them and said unto them, with men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible.
That's too funny with those words.
So, so it really, that gives you a taste, and we don't even have to extrapolate on it. It gives you just a little bit of taste of what, the tenor in our community. But God bless Ellen. This is Ellen Bigham. She is now our director. She was a library employee at the time that Todd moved on. The board appointed her an interim director. And while Todd had taken what could be characterized as a very hard line, First Amendment, we're not going to budge. He was very confident in his slippery slope. Once we start moving one book, or we get rid of one, for these reasons, then where does it end, right? Ellen came
And
on
God
board.
bless Todd.
God bless
Yes.
Todd, right?
Todd.
Ellen came on board and she took the stance of, well, let's make some changes. Let's try to extend the olive branch, as it were. listen, because that was one of the complaints, we're not being listened to, we're not being heard. And so she met with people and she said, I am listening, I'm listening. The very first thing that she did was she moved the entire nonfiction young adult collection, the entire young adult nonfiction collection, upstairs to the adult section, which took a heck of a lot of reshelving if any of the librarians out here. But that was in an effort to not just cherry pick, you know, the books that were in question and move them, but and she had really good reasons for it. So the entire collection moved upstairs. She also then bought some furniture, created a little bit more visual barriers, not like doors you have to go through, but a little bit more separation between the young adult and the children's section. Because that was one of the concerns. Oh, the 5-year-old can wander into the young adult section and pull this book is gay off the shelf, and so that was one of the concerns. She also then created what's a parenting section. So some of those first conversation books about racism, about race, about gender, first conversation books, they went into a parenting shelf, which is can be appropriate, so that parents have a little bit more. This is if I'm looking for books about this topic, I can find them here. And they were moved up a little bit, so just young people couldn't just pull them off the shelf. And I would like to note that the 11 books grew, as Todd accurately predicted, to 100 books. That they did not complete a formal challenge to those books, but it was the list that was circulated.
The list started to grow.
Yes. God bless Ellen.
God bless Ellen.
So this is the, what do we call this? This is the legal.
This is the proposition number 2.
Yeah, the legal language for proposition number 2 that our county prosecutor submitted to the auditor, which then went to the library board, who were compelled to approve it. They had to sign it. And that was the quickest 2 minutes, the most painful.
It was a special meeting. It was a 2-minute meeting. The library board had to do it
Yes.
by procedure, by law. There was no way they could get around it. So they followed the law.
And at that meeting is when the chair of the board then asked Deb and I would you be willing to write the voter pamphlet statement against proposition. So it became really weird to kind of wrap your brain around. You're actually writing against. You want to vote against proposition number 2.
Yeah.
Vote no to
library.
save the library.
Right. And so that was a challenge. That was a real challenge to get that wording and that idea.
Get that message
People
unified so
Yes.
everybody knew, because usually when you want something to succeed, you vote yes. And so it was a very unified message we purposely crafted for going forward. So Tanya and I are working on these against statements. I'm a wheat farmer, and this is during harvest last summer. And I'm in a combine from 7 in the morning till 8 at night, 6 days a week. I don't have a lot of time to read these books. I had seen a post on Facebook that specifically quoted from What's the Tea, some wording that was in the book. So I said, well, I can't read the book. So I checked the book out on audiobooks and I listened to it in my combine. And guess what? The wording that was quoted on social media was nowhere to be found in this book.
Wow. You're shameless.
Yes, it was,
Mhm.
yeah. I wish I still had that screenshot. No, I don't, but I wish I still had that to go back to, because I've always been one to do your research and make your own educated decision, but then I really dug in on this issue. So this is just some combine footage, just more for your viewing pleasure. Just so you can kind of see. I mean, I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I have no cell reception usually when I'm in a combine. So that summer I listened to What's the Tea, and I found that book to be very helpful. There are some people that this book might be what saved their lives. They may not have any mentors, they may not have any adults they could go to. They could read this book and it might save their life.
What's it about?
It's about a young person that is becoming transgender and doesn't know, there's no
don't know how to
recipe to
navigate
do
it.
this. And so this book is a bit of maybe a recipe, that's not quite the right word, but it's helpful. It talks about health. It talks about HIV and how to protect yourself from HIV, which I think was huge. I mean, we went through the 80s when we didn't know what this was. And now we have somebody talking how to save your life. It just talked about other appropriate behaviors. What is not appropriate, how to not get sexually assaulted, perhaps. And so I really felt it could be a life-saving book.
And I'm going to interject, my 82-year-old aunt, who's a
Mhm.
lifelong nurse in Seattle, checked it out and read it. She said, my gosh, she said, I read that book from stem to stern. And I didn't see anything objectionable in it. She said, that is good information. And a young person who is questioning, is wondering, needs information, possibly guidance or something, this was an important book. So she read stem to stern. Yes. I'm proud of my Aunt Betty.
Yeah.
Go Aunt
She
Betty.
wasn't in a Columbine.
No.
Combine, yes, Combine.
And you read a couple of other books too.
I read a couple of other books. I read The Black Friend, or I listened to The Black Friend.
Yeah.
They Hate You.
And They Hate You Give, which that was a really powerful
If you haven't
story.
read that book.
Yeah, so I just started, I called Tanya and I'm like, okay, give me some books that are on this top 10 list and I'm gonna start listening to them so I can be educated about, because I'm gonna dig in and I'm gonna fight with you guys, but I need to know what I'm doing, so.
So serendipitously, in 2022, I helped found Neighbors United for Progress. We are a political action committee. But we're unique in that we're not one camp. We are a group of neighbors with very moderate views. So we really are a big tent, which really works for our community. We formed because we saw a need to push back against this local extremist group who had managed to get themselves in all local government. And they had been, I don't know if you are familiar with the term, but they were engaged in tactical civics. And so they are they just have a very different worldview and they wanted it in Dayton. And let's see, in August, let me finish that one thought. So as a political action committee, we are able to use our funds for or against ballot measures. And so I thought, well, hello, we are against this ballot measure. Let's do something. And so we did a little digging around, see who would like to take this on, what we could do legally. And we were connected with a man named Rick Jacobs out of Walla Walla, Jacobs Law, and discovered that we were a good fit, and we hit the deck running.
And
We fought. Oh, that's right. There's more. There's more to this story. But wait. So in August, at the end of August, we filed an injunction. So this was going to pause any forward motion with this petition going through the auditor's office. And
get it on the ballot.
to get it on the ballot. And then, okay. And
Just
then
to be important to know, go ahead, is that, the library board couldn't say yay or nay, right? Even the friends of the library had to be pretty careful. Because there's definitely laws that pertain to when you're on a board, you cannot,
yes,
campaign.
you could not do any
So,
campaigning.
Thank goodness for that. So, and you were talking about social media, hearsay, all of that. We can post whatever we want to post. It doesn't have to be true and it doesn't have to be accurate. And so I led a small group of people to forming, and where's our stuff? We should make sure.
Oh, yeah, the bag.
You all will get a copy of
Hopefully.
this in
There are bags.
It was here, but I don't know if it's.
Oh,
good.
did I just write it in the table?
In the
Okay, good.
okay,
there
So
it
we
is.
have a lovely book bag for you all.
Yeah.
With a copy of this booklet, with all
Mhm.
kinds of good information about our
Mhm.
library and our town and things. So this is a multi-page booklet, frequently asked questions, where because I had been so steeped, marinated in library law and library tax structure and all of that stuff. So I hold the institutional memory, really, for our library, and in our community. So a fellow board member who's on the original board and I sat down and wrote this. Our goal was to have it in the hands of people at our county fair, manning a booth, handing out the county fair, where we really delved into what is this proposition? What does it mean? What's the wording? What really trying to educate and get information into people's hands. It was accurate, it was verified, it was not just an emotional, because information is powerful. It very, very, very important. And we also delved into our budget. Because then people started during this whole thing like, oh my gosh, they spend this on, their book budget is this much. And again, I don't know what your home budget is. It's none of my business. Our budgets are based on our values, right? And so the library budget is based on the values of providing robust, responsible library service and responsive library service to our community. So this was a labor, a labor of love. Nuff paid for the printing, because of course the library board couldn't. Nuff paid for the printing, and we passed them out, and we ended up actually mailing them to every
taxpayer.
voter.
Yeah, every registered voter. Yep.
In the entire county, and I hand addressed every single one of them.
Oh, my.
So
Oh, my.
that was a labor we had.
So, one point here, maybe you mentioned it earlier, but the voters on this are the people just in the rural area,
Yes.
not people in the city.
One
Same thing, is the
1062.
same thing that was true on the petition, is that gonna be true in the vote?
Yes,
Okay, that's what I recall.
Yep.
Yeah.
yes, definitely. But we decided to go ahead and send it to all the city residents as well. Because we really felt in this process that they were being disenfranchised and
Absolutely.
they need the information as well, right?
Right.
Because the majority of our population lives in the city.
Right.
Now, 3/4 of our county value is in the rural county. So 3/4 of our library budget comes from our rural county folk. Only 1/4 of that budget comes from city taxpayers, and yet they're our largest patron group, right? So it's kind of interesting, yeah.
All of the signs that were put up in yards were in town, because that's where everybody would see them. So there were signs, I don't even remember what they said.
Vote no for Prop 2.
Yeah, well, that was our signs, but the other
our children
side,
alone.
leave our children
Oh.
alone. I mean,
Yo,
there's
those
signs
are-
that on 4th Street is a busy street that goes up.
Save
to
our
the-
children's innocence.
Yeah, so, and that's where, so city is where a lot of stuff happens. So we hit the city to educate them as well.
So, NUP on September 5th filed a temporary restraining order on anything to do with the proposition. So this was a very strategic, fast-paced case because we had to make sure that the proposition didn't go to the Secretary of State's office where everything was printed on the ballot. We had to make sure that didn't happen. And the TRO was what stopped anything from happening. So
it was granted.
yeah, the TRO was granted on.
That's not automatic.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm
It
just saying that
probably,
the
you're
judge
right,
said-
that's right, you
Yeah.
said you were a lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Granted,
I mean, Rick
TRO.
would probably say, that's not how it goes.
I mean, it's quite an achievement.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
They made their case. I think they made a good case,
Yes.
right?
Talk about who the defendants were.
Right, so I am the plaintiff, right?
Mhm. There you go.
So Neighbors United for Progress Elise Severe and Jerry Kaiser. One person was a city dweller, the other was a county dweller. And we filed as plaintiffs against Jessica Ruffcorn, the petitioner, as well as our auditor. And please remind me what Kathy Abel does. What is her job in the auditor's office? What does it say
The
on
voter
her?
stuff, the voter stuff. Kathy Abel, an individual, oh yeah, so
Anyways, we had to
Director of
sue
Elections.
our friends, not Jessica, but Will Hutchins, our auditor, and Kathy Abel. We had to sue them in their official capacity, which broke my heart.
But, yeah.
And you see, September 5th, we're heading towards the general election, right?
Yeah.
So the timeline.
Yeah, timeline is ticking. On September 6th, Jessica Ruffcorn announced that she was going to be represented by Pete Serrano. He was part of the firm, the Silent Majority Foundation, and if anybody wants to Google that name, Pete Serrano, have at it. He's an interesting fellow.
Pay attention.
Yes,
We're giving you a clue.
just a little nudge.
State things.
So from the Silent Majority Foundation Facebook, they posted this. And it's really, I think it's important that we read, I will read out loud since it's very small font. Concerned parents and community members choose to stand up and demand their public library remove pornographic and immoral material from the library's children's section. When their concerns would not be heard, they petitioned the local government to demand change. Now they are being targeted by lawfare. Donate to help defend those concerned citizens. So those are a lot of buzzwords, a lot of
Lawfare.
zero facts
Now remember,
from a law firm.
at this point in time, the books have been moved. So the changes have been made in the library and the states, we weren't listened to.
Yeah, buzzwords.
Yeah.
It still makes my heart pound.
Yes.
You know, when we use the words pornographic.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many laws, as you know. I mean, the library cannot have pornographic materials in it.
Right.
The FBI would be there.
Pornographic and immoral. I'm standing here with my heart pounding.
Yeah.
Even a year later. It's
Take a breath.
yeah.
Okay. Take a breath.
So September 20th at 4:00 in the afternoon, our Columbia County Commissioner, Julie Carl, ruled in favor of no. So the initiative would not be on the ballots. And I want to kind of paint a picture of the courtroom. So we showed you a picture of our courthouse. It's very beautiful. It has a lot of the original wood in it. It's very old-timey. It's very, very classic. Yes, very
Burgundy
grand.
carpet, very grand,
Mhm.
dark wood.
And the room was packed. I don't know if it's ever been packed. There was no seating. There was standing room only. And when she ruled, everybody,
erupted.
it was amazing.
I cried. I sat in the
Yep.
sat in the chair and cried.
What was the basis of the ruling?
Right here.
Right here. So, it's a great question. So
Nice segue.
she actually went into great depth and detail into why she ruled the way she did. First, the thing she said was that we did away with taxation without representation a long time ago. And so going back to, right, so it was only the rural county folk who could vote on this to dissolve the library, and yet city residents were paying taxes at the same rate. And so they were being represented in this. And this is really just an oversight of state law, the wording of the law, right? She also said that, quote, there are potential criminal acts related to the collection of signatures. Many people came to Elise and and said, my neighbor came to me with a clipboard and said, sign this. This is true, so we can remove the books. This is to protect our children, so we can remove the books.
And remember when I read the title of the petition to you? Not the same thing.
So in a small community, we trust our neighbors. We want to trust our neighbors. We're busy. Many people were approached at work. They were getting their groceries out of their car. Here, sign this. It's like, Yeah, I want to get rid of those bad books in the library, so I'm gonna sign this.
They were approached
Without
at
you.
church.
They were approached at church.
They were approached.
They were approached outside of library board meetings.
My husband, so I sat down after I got the first Freedom of Information Act and I'm reading through the first set of signatures and I turn the page and here's my husband's signature. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, honey, do you remember signing something? And he's like, well, yeah. And I said, can we talk about it, please? And he said, well, I was approached at the chemical dealer while I was signing my stuff to go down the road, you know, following the law, signing what he needed to. And one of the employees came up and said, we need to get the pornographic books out of the library. And Kurt's like, okay, I'll sign it. I said, do you remember me telling you not to sign anything ever? Yeah. I said, this is a perfect example why. So he was very much not told the truth.
Yeah.
So thankfully those were thrown out.
And my Aunt Betty,
Oh,
she was approached at church and she said, my mama taught me to read carefully anything that I signed. So I took the time and I read it. And I'm not signing this. I love my Aunt Betty. So yeah. She's also a rabid member of the Friends of the Library. So, so Julie Carl also said that it would be an irreparable loss to the community. We are 30 miles from the next town with any kind of services. Okay. It would also disproportionately affect the poorest in our community. Really. It is the only place in Dayton where you can fax, where you can make copies, where you can use public computers. It's a warming center in the winter. It's a cooling center in the summer. It's a safe place where kids can go. Our Friends of the Library provided free lunches to anybody, any child, any minor in our community.
all summer long.
All summer long.
All summer long.
They also provide snacks after school. They allow homework help. You can come in if somebody sends you an iPad. We have this all the time. It's like, children got me this iPad, they don't know how to set it up. Our library staff will take the time to help you set up your iPad. We'll help you figure out your phone, you know, your new phone or things. So it's that customer service. This is a safe place. And it would disproportionately affect the poorest. So it really is about what we do for our community for the least of us, right?
So after the celebration at the court with the courthouse wind, the next step was to change the law. That is where Tanya and I worked really hard and got way out of our comfort zone. And we were able to testify, give verbal testimony, written testimony a few times in the first session of our state legislature from January to March, I believe.
So this year.
Yes, I know.
This
And
is all pretty fresh.
yeah, well, we're sort of like, was it this year or has it been a while?
It's been a long time ago, because really, as we highlighted, there was a loophole. Yes.
And this is the law so that the people of Dayton can vote on this as well as the people from the county.
Correct.
Correct.
Not
So
division.
there were several points of this Senate Bill 5824.
Yes.
That was sponsored by Sam Hunt. We love Sam Hunt. And the Secretary of State, I want to mention, is a great library supporter.
Yes.
And the Washington State Library is under the auspices of the Secretary of State's office, right?
Yeah.
So Sarah Jones was a fabulous supporter as well. She was answering questions. She was an incredible resource.
Yeah, I was able to attend a Zoom meeting with Steve Hobbs. He knew all about what was happening in Dayton. He was very disturbed. I cannot praise him enough. He's a fantastic, incredibly smart human being, huge supporter of the library system and national security.
So you're right. So there were several loopholes in that. One was the 10% bar.
Yes.
Is
For
way too low
signatures, yeah.
for the petition.
Yeah.
And then also that the language was so antiquated, it hadn't been updated since like the 1940s or 50s, right?
Yeah.
Because who thinks about the language that you have to
Who
have in
thinks
place to
about that?
dissolve a library?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
They had even probably imagined this conundrum that we were in with this annexed marriage between the city and the rural county. So that needed to really be cleaned up and updated. So, and that's what Senate Bill 5824 did.
So we had the pleasure of going to a bill signing ceremony at the Capitol. This was my first time ever going, probably my last. You know, this probably won't ever happen again, but it was a very enlightening, I would say, core memory of mine. I was so honored to be there and to be a part of this. And I wanna, there is a little moment through this process, through this 3-month process that I would like to share that means a lot to me, being from a rural community. So when we were testifying, this was also a civics 101 lesson because we've never done this sort of thing before. I didn't know you could log in and read a bill. You sure can. So it went from the Senate to the House to the floor for votes. Went back again. And then when it came to the floor for no, that was why it went back. So when it went to the floor for vote, there was a Republican who wanted to make an amendment. He wanted to change the signature requirement threshold from, we had initially asked for 35%. He wanted 25%. And Sam Hunt, the sponsor of the bill, he said yes. I think some people were upset that Sam Hunt said, yes, we will do this. That was a moment of compromise. As we know, in Washington, we're a very blue state. Republicans are the minority and Democrats are the majority. But we all need to, when there's a moment where we can say, sure, I'm getting what I want, you're getting what you want, let's do it. It was for everyone. So that was an important thing to me.
And I would like to give a little bit of a shout out to the Inatai Foundation.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the Inatai Foundation, which was originally Group Health?
Mm-hmm.
Which is now, I encourage you, we can't go into it, but they were an incredible supporter of NUP. Both in just financially and through grants, and they were do some Google search on Inatai Foundation. Both of these ladies here, she's the chair of the Inatai Foundation. Did you spell that?
Yeah.
INAI in a tie. No, shoot.
Isn't it Ian?
It's I.
In a tie. INATIA. In a tie. AI. In a tie. Shoot.
I have it in my,
Stand by.
Sounds like initiative. Is it initiative?
It's a Native American term.
Oh,
In a tie. TAI.
okay.
I can't remember. So while she's looking for that, oh, great.
INATAI.
There we go.
There we
Thank
go.
you. In a tie.
Inatai. It is Native American. Their mission, their heart, their mission is incredible. And they are awarding grant money 35
out of the 39 counties already this year.
Yes, in the millions and millions of dollars. So they are incredible people.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Very wonderful.
So here's what we continue to do. The battle has been won. It's behind us. This is what we continue to do. This is a picture of the fair booth at our local fair this year, which was just a couple weeks ago. And not again paid for book bags. We gave out swag. We gave out canvas book bags, of which you all will get one. And it says, I love my library. And they went like hotcakes. So we gave out book bags, and in the book bag was library card applications for our library. There was a little trifold about the library, Yep, and their,
in our
the
booklet.
updated booklet was in there, and then a little bit of information about Dayton as a town, places to go, places to eat, that type of thing.
Yes, so when you come to visit, you already have a tour guide.
We continue to work on healing our community. There were some pretty big caverns created from this,
Mhm.
some which will never be healed. But we're trying to heal.
A lot of deep hurt. There are people that are still struggling with bitterness, you know, about how could my neighbor? Yeah, so
Yeah,
when you, whoo, it is, but, and we don't necessarily, none of us want to kind of pick at the scab too much, right? We want to continue to let things heal, continue to do good, positive things in the library, always best foot forward, always positive, and allowing time, hopefully, to heal some of this, so.
And we're always just trying to promote collaboration.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. We can all come together and collaborate and be a better community from that.
yes.
Our message to you is pay attention to what your local government is doing. Go to your board meetings, to your library board meetings, to your commissioner meetings, to your parks and rec meetings. You have public comment, you are allowed to be there as a taxpayer. Go participate, go on Zoom. It's very easy to do these days. Attend your public meetings, know how your tax structure works, know what your property taxes go to in your community. The assessor has a printout, well, our assessor does, I'm pretty sure everyone does, and it shows line item by line item where your money goes to the police, to your fire districts.
To the school, to the hospital.
Yeah, so know how that works, understand how that works, and it is a very fluid, changing mathematical equation every single year, depending on what they bring in for taxes. It is complicated, but just start to learn about it. Ask questions when you're at the meetings. We kind of try and go to meetings. I haven't been lately, but I just sit and listen to see what
Shenanigans are going on.
everybody's talking about and what they think, and I just want them to know that I'm sitting there. Be collaborative, have conversations and not arguments,
Yeah,
and do your own educated research. Don't listen to the stuff on social media. Yeah.
Because even now, there are changes, there's a lot of turnover in our board. And so they did go through the collection development policy pretty carefully. They've gone through it twice now since all this happened. And they have removed all overt mention of the ALA in our policies. Well, our policies are predicated and the foundation of our policies. Our ALA, especially like our collection development policy.
American Library Association.
Thank you, sorry,
Yes.
sorry.
Yep.
Thank you. The American Library Association, which has gotten a lot of mixed attention here lately, which is unfortunate because the foundation of the ALA, I think, is just very, very important, right? And this is happening all over the United States.
This is happening everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Are there any questions?
yeah. What would you like to know?
Yeah.
Has this group and its efforts popped up anywhere else?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
now
yes.
In your town?
Yes.
Yes.
In taking the questions, can you repeat it so
Oh,
that we
yeah.
can?
Good idea.
Has
The
this,
question has been asked.
the question is, oh, I'm back in 4-H.
Oh, yeah.
The question has been asked, has this group been doing anything else around town? And the question is, oh, yes. They made sure that we're a very small community. We have 0 licensed childcare, and they made sure that a new project to implement an organized, structured, licensed childcare center,
In cooperation with the YWCA.
yes, did not go forward because women need to be at home with their children. And that is quote from our port commissioner. I know women, oh, right? And it was a room of men saying women needed to be home with their children. We do not need childcare centers. They made sure that a Metropolitan Parks and Rec district failed because they took a word out of the MRWs that said eminent domain. They ran wild with that. Oh, what else did they do that I am forgetting at the moment?
City council, they have a number of seats, in the city council. Again, this is just from people not stepping forward. What is that great quote? The only thing that keeping, something about the evil going forward is that good men do nothing, right?
Right.
And so we can't afford to be complacent, especially in a small town with small populations. We don't want to be complacent, and we were. So they now have a number of seats in city council. And in fact, with regard to the library, they tried to get the city council to agree to de-annex from the
Right.
Rural County Library District. So
To form their own.
to farm their own, so they were gonna take back the library and they were going to fund it. And fortunately, there were some calm, clear heads on the council that went, what?
And a few people
Right.
behind the scenes.
Right, which we were, having conversations.
With
and
our mayor.
educating people.
Mhm.
Remember what I told you, 3/4 of the funding comes from the rural county.
I was gonna say financially, that's a loser.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Again, divorce, nobody wins in a divorce. The children,
That's
Suffer.
the most, yeah.
right, so, yeah, so yes.
So yes, to answer your question.
Yeah.
Are there similar impulses with public school libraries or high schools?
Not yet, and I am a teacher, I'm a substitute teacher, and I just finished working full-time for 5 years, not yet. There have been books that have been surreptitiously removed from the high school library. That's all I'm gonna say, unfortunately, yeah.
Did going through this experience, lead you or any of the other community members that you worked with to save the library? Did it lead you to get more involved in local politics? Are there any?
Okay.
City council.
Okay, so please correct me if I am summarizing this wrong. Did this entire experience inspire other people to become more involved with local government? Is that what you were asking?
Yes, in particularly people that were involved in fighting to save the library. Did it bring new people? to
Yes.
that there was
Yes.
a faction?
Yeah, we all, just a prime example, we all know each other, but we've never worked closely on a subject like this before. It really, I don't know. How do you explain?
But there were people I know that are enough now
Yeah.
that are more interested in running for city council,
Yes.
putting their name in the hat for
Yeah.
commissioner. Because they were,
They see
while they
what's
maybe
happening.
weren't front lines like we were, they were there at the nut meetings, they
Mhm.
were, involved in that, knowledgeable. And so they're like, yeah, I'm willing to throw my hat in. It is a thankless
Yeah.
service, but they're willing to do it.
Were any of the people, your opponents, were any of them able to hear you in the end about the books not being pornographic? About how young people might be confused about certain things that would help them to read a book?
So the question is, were any of the people for the dissolution, did they hear the other side of the conversation? Did I get that right? I would say that is a very, very firm no. No, there is no changing their mind. They are unbending.
And in fact, David Goodman wrote a follow-up article after the injunction was granted. And where Jessica Ruffhorn is quoted as saying, we are not going to stop. We're going to continue to defend and protect our children.
Yes.
This isn't over. Now, there's nothing that's come of that since she made that statement. But she went on record in a Times article.
So is the group that is pushing these unfortunate policies, are they part of a national organization, or is there pretty much a core local group that's kind of self-actuated
So-
in this?
Yeah,
Question's been asked.
the question was, is this group pushing these different agendas? Are they part of different national groups? And the answer is yes. Jessica Ruffcorn and other people were following the Moms for Liberty playbook very closely, even though if you ask her, she'll say, "Who is Moms for Liberty?" And yeah, the other members, they are very into True the Vote, constitutional sheriffs type thing, Alliance Defending Freedom, very MAGA, you know.
And there are groups there that are, and they're kind of like on the low down still. I think they're becoming more overt in their doings.
Yeah,
That are targeting rural America. They
Right.
really are targeting rural America because we are an easy target. And we tend to lean more conservative,
yes.
right? And it's just easier. It's just easier to
Yes.
get on board, easier to get into positions of authority. And they are organized, but they're more like,
Overt.
yes,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, and
in the tactical civics.
I think it's important to note that this Christian national movement, this MAGA movement, those are not Republicans. Like our family members, our friends, I call them John McCain Republicans, you know, the before MAGA, the normal Republican. So you could have a normal dinner table debate and not want to never talk to each other again because it wasn't so polarizing. The majority of our community, why this why banning books and why burning down a library didn't sit well is because the majority of us don't agree with that. We just had to have those very one-on-one emotional conversations. In fact, I had my father, we live on Highway 12, so we're like an advertiser's dream. And we put up these big field signs that say farmers for libraries and ranchers for libraries.
4 foot by 8 foot sign.
Yes, huge. And it just really opened up this door to remind people we're not about this. We're about this. And so people really, it was like that weird silver lining that came out of it.
So we had a question from somebody online. They were asking if other libraries and small communities are under the same pressure, and if you're a reference, or are you supporting them in protecting their libraries?
I don't know, that would be a good question for Sarah Jones, and I'm not aware of right now. True confession, when we wrapped through to the end of this, I needed to step back.
We did.
Because I felt like a hamburger,
Yeah.
right? I really, really did, and it still is emotional for me.
Mhm.
So I'm not aware of anything in Washington State. However, I will say, and those of the librarians that are in the room, there is a certain amount of censorship, whether we admit it or not, that does happen at a pre-purchase level, where librarians will say, you know, it's probably not worth the risk. Right, especially, and there's a great book, and I can't remember the title of it, but our library carries it, and I read it. It was very eye-opening. It was written by librarians, different librarians.
Isn't it called
experience.
That Librarian? That Librarian?
I don't know,
Or-
about censorship and how many of them did confess to censoring a collection of
Self-censoring.
self-censoring.
Yeah.
Right, and then, which it is a reality, right? But certainly, yeah, so.
The current issue of Publishers Weekly is a must read. I could probably send out a link to the digital copy because a section of it is on what's happening, some data on challenges to libraries in the last 3 years. So there's significant 2 or 3 pages, including the editor's page. And for one example, it shows graphs of the challenges to, you know, the book banning challenges and state law attempts to pass state laws. Like 2021, it was like this high. 2022 was like this, 2023 it was like this.
Yeah.
It kind of created its own
Yeah.
Momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is bad book week.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, it is.
yeah.
Yes, it is.
And
And this
it's,
is the kickoff.
it's our 1 year anniversary for our court case on Friday.
On Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We realized that in the airport.
So let me step in here.
Oh.
The little formal dedication.
Oh.
This is a plaque that we have. Let me see if we can get it this way.
Here, I'll come
This,
over.
this is the Book Club of Washington Emory Award recipients, starting in 2015. I've mentioned several of the award winners who are here today. Which way? Down. Down. Okay, there we go. Okay. And latest on this list, well, I should mention, David Wertheimer was our award winner last year. He's attending this by Zoom, but we have now Tanya Patton, Elise Severe, and Deb Fortner now as our recipients for 2024.